Thank you so much for utilizing this pre-recorded resource for Title II, Part A, Supplement Not Supplant, Professional Development Worksheet, and Validation Overview. My name's Laura Wake, and I'm the Post-Award Compliance Unit Manager within the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division. I need to share with you two disclaimers before we jump into the content of the training. There's the legal disclaimer, which essentially states that we are operating on our most current understanding of the content that is contained within this presentation. It is subject to change, and it does not constitute legal advice. If you should require legal advice, you would need to seek legal counsel. Also, I need to share with you the recording and AI disclaimer. Recording and use of artificial intelligence. The Texas Education Agency does not permit third-party recording or the use of artificial intelligence summary services during its grants-related trainings. Attendees of TEA's grants-related trainings may not use AI services, language models, applications, interfaces, or assistants to attend, review, or record the trainings. TEA further prohibits any person or entity from using the information included in these grants-related trainings to train AI technologies. Any attendees of TEA's grant-related trainings who violate this prohibition may be removed from trainings and may be barred from attending future grants-related trainings. Our agenda: I will be giving you a post-award compliance overview. So some of the responsibilities of our unit, I'll be sharing with you the Title II Part A professional development statutory requirement, which is not a new statutory requirement, but as it relates to the USDE monitoring visit and the why behind these newly added requirements. As a consolidated federal, with a focus on the PS 3104 with the newly added assurance and the Title II Part A supplement not supplant professional development worksheet newly added requirement. The Title II Part A supplement not supplant professional development worksheet. We're breaking down some options for that documentation. You'll have 3 different options. And then we will give a brief overview of the 2025-2026 Title II Part A supplement not supplant professional development random data validation. The Post-Award Compliance Unit is housed within the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division. We are responsible for reviewing federally funded grant applications post-award. And what that means is when a school system submits their application and it goes through the process with grants administration to the point where the NOGA is awarded, at that point, our unit goes in and we review the federal grant application post-award for any issues of non-compliance as it relates to statutes, regulations, non-regulatory guidance, and grant guidelines. If we do find an issue with the application post-award, then we reach out to the school system, provide our assistance in resolving the matter, and it typically ends through a submission of an amendment to that application. In addition to the reviews that we do of the federal grant applications post-award, we also are responsible for a variety of random data validations, including the BS 6016 IDEA B LEA MOE random data validation, the Title II Part A and Title III Part A supplement not supplant professional development random validations. Those two are newly added validations which will be taking place in the spring of 2026, and the Title I Part A Homeless Reservation Random Validation, which is also a newly added validation, which will also be taking place in 2026 early on in the year. So most likely launching in January of 2026. Title II, Part A, Professional Development Statutory Requirements and USDE's monitoring visit. This statutory requirement is not a new one, as I mentioned earlier. It is essentially stating that the professional development that's budgeted for or paid for with Title II Part A funds, it must be supplemental and not professional development that is required by state law. So when USDE came to visit, one of the items where we are required to take action at TEA is to do subrecipient monitoring of the statutory guideline. So we are tasked with doing additional subrecipient monitoring to ensure that Title II Part A funds are being utilized supplementally and that they're not supplanting. So some of the measures that we are putting in place moving forward, one I'll show you in a moment is the assurance on the application itself on the PS 3104 Part 1C, which is the professional development and educator growth section on that schedule. There's an added assurance, and when the school system checks that assurance, then they are assuring that the Title II Part A funds are being used supplementally for the purpose of professional development. And they're also assuring that at the local level, they have completed some version of the Title II Part A Professional Development Educator Growth Worksheet or equivalent, and I'll go through some options for that in a moment, and that will be kept locally in the event that it is requested by TEA. And it would be requested in this case in the scenario of if the school system is a part of that 10% random sample for the validation that will be taking place in the spring of 2026. In the event that the school system is chosen randomly for that validation, what would be requested is the worksheet or equivalent. We would be looking at that compared against the ESSA consolidated federal grant application, specifically looking at the PS 3104 and all the relevant budgetary schedules on the ESSA consolidated federal grant application, compared against the worksheet or equivalent, compared against financial records that are coming from the school system's official financial accounting system. This is the schedule with the updated assurance included. You'll see here under section C, planned uses of funds by area of focus. Number two there is the professional development and educator growth. So if the school system says yes to the professional development and educator growth section, they will be required to also click that assurance that they are using Title II Part A funds supplementally for that professional development effort, and that they have completed the Title II Part A Professional Development Educator Growth Worksheet or equivalent, and that they are keeping that locally in the event that it is requested. Title II Part A Professional Development Documentation Submission Options. So there are three different options for types, the way that this could be documented essentially. So option one is the Title II Part A Supplement Not Supplant Professional Development Smart Sheet form. Now, what's lovely about this is that it's very seamless. You submit your responses on this form, and then it populates on the back end into a smart sheet. So we automatically have the information. So it's not only are you're submitting the requirement, but also we've already got that information in our system in the event that your school system is selected as a part of that 10% validation sample. We'll already have your information. The way that this works is for the subrecipient name, there's a drop down there, and I'll go to the live form in a moment to show you. But you would select your school system and CDN number, you'd select your region, and then there's a section here where there's a drop down where you would select all the planned required professional development activities that your school district is planning on taking part in. Now, within that, whatever trainings you indicate there, you're also indicating the class object code that's utilized, the estimated amount to be spent, and the funding source being utilized. That's for the required trainings. There's a almost identical setup for the supplemental trainings where there's a drop down menu that you can choose from. And you also have the option of inputting the trainings manually. You would utilize the text fields there indicating the training title, relevant class object codes, funding source, and estimated amount. If the supplemental training was offered in school year 2024-2025, so the previous school year, it will ask you that question, was it offered? And if it was, the form will ask you to indicate the funding source utilized for that training in the previous school year. The reason for that is, say, for example, in the previous school year, that supplemental training was offered and you paid for it with state level funds, but now this school year you're wanting to utilize the Title II Part A funds. Well, that's supplanting because the previous year you used a different fund source to pay for that same supplemental training. Another important aspect of this is that you want to remember to check the send me a copy of my responses box. And when you do that, it will open up a field where you input your email address. And then when you hit the submit button, your responses on this form will automatically be emailed to you so you can have a record of them. Another beauty of this approach is that there is a dynamic view set up that's linked up through our work app. So anything you submit through this form, you also have access to through that work app system. All right, so I'm going to take you directly into the form now. And here it is. So if this is the route you choose to take, the option that you choose, then you would select from the drop down. Now this first one is just our test account, so that's why I'm using that. And then for the test account, it's region 21. Obviously, we know there aren't 21 regions, but again, this is the test account. And then for the required plan trainings, there's a list of possibilities for trainings that are required trainings. Now, you can select, and I encourage you to select as many as apply for your school district. So, for example, if your school district is taking part in reading academies, you would select that one. If your school district is taking part in the required human trafficking training, then you would click that one. If your district is supporting the teacher certification requirements, you would select that one. And anything that you select, you're going to see the corresponding fields open up. So for example, here is the Reading Academies field where I have to select the class object code that's being utilized, and it could potentially be more than one class object code. And then the funding source. Now you can see here, because these are required trainings, that where it says federal, there's a reminder here, not Title II Part A, because these are required and the Title II Part A funds are meant to be used for the supplemental trainings. Now, so I would select whichever one applies for this particular training and how it's being funded. And then I would indicate here the estimated amount. Now, if, for example, you put something up here and it was an error or you want to remove it, all you have to do is click the X and it takes those fields away. Now, say for example, on this drop down, you don't see the required training or these don't apply to what you need. And so right here, you can select additional required trainings. And it will open up these fields where you can indicate the titles, the class object code, funding source, and then the estimated amount for the training. Say then that you are done indicating the required trainings portion, and now you're going to get into the supplemental professional development activities. So you would enter here whatever training title is required, and then when you do that, it will trigger these other fields to open up where you would choose the class object code, the funding source, the estimated amount, and then was the supplemental training number one offered in school year 2024-2025? If you say no, that's the end of it. And if you needed to add another supplemental training, all you have to do is click here and it opens up more fields. But perhaps this was a training that was offered in 2024-2025. So then it will ask you what funding source was utilized in the previous school year. Hopefully it's the same funding source as was utilized in the previous school year and there won't be any issues of supplanting. Now, again, if an error is made, all you have to do is remove those items. And then those fields will collapse. You'll want to put in here the date in which you submitted the form. And again, very critical that you select the send me a copy of my responses. Put your email in there and then hit submit. This on the back end populates a smart sheet, which also feeds into a dynamic view, which is linked up to the work app. So that's option one. Let me get back to the presentation. So here we are. Let me start sharing again. Okay. So option one, smart sheet form, excellent choice for a variety of reasons. Now option two is the Title II Part A Supplement Non-Supplant Professional Development Worksheet. This is obviously a static image. I will take you into the live version in a moment. The first page is the guidance page. There are resource links here, including a link to a YouTube video of how to fill out this particular worksheet. There's also a tab for required professional development that's planned, the supplemental professional development that's planned, and then an example of how to fill out the worksheet. This is what the required professional development tab looks like. It basically reflects the same information that is housed in that smart sheet form. except here you would be entering the professional development activity. There's not a drop down there. There is a drop down for the class object code, and then you would put in the estimated amount, and then there is a drop down for the funding source utilized. And then this is what the supplemental professional development tab on the worksheet looks like. Same types of information, just in this case for the supplemental professional development that's planned. This is an example of how to complete the worksheet. This is where you can find the worksheet. You can find it on the Post Award Compliance webpage, and you can also find it on the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Work App dashboard. So I'm going to take us to the web page, and I'm going to scroll down to the Title II Part A Professional Development Educator Growth Worksheet. It will then download the worksheet for me because it is in an Excel format. You can see the overview here of the guidance, all the links to the resources. These are lists of requirements. And then these are additional resources down here, including, as I mentioned earlier, the guidance on the Title II Part A Supplement Not Supplant Professional Development Worksheet and how to complete it. This is what the required professional development plan tab looks like. You just click in the cell and complete your entries there. You would enter the school system name here, the county district number here. There is a drop down for the class object code. This is where you would enter the estimated amount. There's the drop down for the funding source. This is the supplemental professional development plan page. Again, class object codes, estimated amount, drop down for the funding source, and Title II Part A is a choice here because this is the supplemental page. Here is the example of how to fill it out. Now we'll go back. Option 3. School systems, if they have a version that is equivalent to the other two options that we already went through, they're welcome to use that. There are certain aspects that the equivalent must include. So if your school system determines that you all would like to use your own local level developed Title II Part A Supplement Not Supplant Professional Development Worksheet, then you'll see here the required aspects of that worksheet. It must include the title of the required professional development activities, the relevant class object codes, the estimated amount to be spent, and the funding source. And the same is true for the supplemental professional development activities. All the same types of information need to be included. So it is perfectly fine to use your own developed worksheet, but it does need to have these aspects included. The types of file formats that are acceptable would be Excel or PDF, and you want to make sure that the identifying information on those files would be the school system name and the county district number. I'll be providing a brief overview of the 2025-2026 Title II Part A Supplement Not Supplant Professional Development Random Validation. We will be facilitating more in-depth trainings on this closer to the onset of the validation itself. But for now, just to share with you, it is a random sample and it's a 10% random sample of school systems. So the first step is that we generate that random sample, that 10%, And once we generate that random sample 10%, those are the school systems that we would eventually be reaching out to and providing training prior to asking for the submission. And then once the training sessions are complete, we would be requesting from those school systems the professional development, educator growth worksheet or smart sheet form or an equivalent thereof, depending on what that particular school system chooses to do. In addition to that submission, we would be requiring a submission of a financial record from the official accounting system so that we can make that comparison between that financial record, what's indicated on the worksheet submission, and then what we're seeing on the ESSEC Consolidated Federal Grant application in terms of the applicable programmatic schedule as well as the budgetary schedules. And the timeline for this is going to be March through May. So initial communication gov delivery, you'll see that come out in January of 2026, just notifying everyone, giving a little bit more background and information about how the validation will be rolled out. Early February of 2026, we'll be providing the educational service centers and informational sessions so that they can lend their hand of support to the school systems. And then in mid-February of 2026, we will be inviting the school systems that are a part of that 10% validation sample to training sessions and office hours. And then in early March of 2026, once the training sessions and office hours have been completed, at that point, we would be requesting the relevant documentation from the school systems. Here are some resources that we compiled. These are active links. There's the Supplement Not Supplant Handbook. There's a lot of great information in there. The Financial Accountability System Resource Guide, the Title II Part A, Supporting Effective Instruction, Title II Part A, Frequently Asked Questions, and then guidance on the Title II Part A, Supplement Not Supplant for Professional Development Worksheet Completion. That is a YouTube recording of how to actually complete that worksheet, that Excel file, if you choose to do that. The Title II Part A Supplement Not Supplant Professional Development Worksheet, the actual worksheet itself is linked up here. And then the Title II Part A Supplement Not Supplant Professional Development Smart Sheet form. So that's a link directly to the form. If you have any questions, concerns, feedback, please reach out to us. We are here to support you. You can reach out to us at the Post-Award Compliance General Mailbox at pac@tea.texas.gov. You can also reach out to me directly. Again, my name's Laura Wake, and I'm the Post-Award Compliance Unit Manager. My direct email is laura.wake@tea.texas.gov. And thank you once again for utilizing this resource.